So this is a fun video idea. Genshin just announced that they're finally buffing old characters, which is very exciting for old players, especially because if you've been playing the game for years, I'm sure you've had moments where you gave up on them ever buffing characters, but after HSR and ZZ did it, maybe some of you believed, and now it's actually our turn. So in a bit under 2 weeks, we're getting these witches homework buffs. Now they didn't go into every detail of these buffs, but they did tease a few things like how Venti now gets infused Animo normal attacks, making him some sort of Animo DPS. This is also massive. Stormeye will now spawn precisely at the monster's location, so you don't have to worry about his burst just going in the complete wrong place. There's also a nice little thing when you play Durin with a buffed character, he also has more res reduction and reaction damage bonus. Klee's buffs are very exciting. They just sped up her animations and you're doing more charge attacks. I just did a bit of frame counting and it's looking quite strong actually. And not just that, but if you look at the skill, look how fast that is now. They straight up just cut out the end lag of her skill and she just teleports down like that. Albedo is also getting buffs, which is nice because of his lore synergy with Durin. Damage increase, and he's also buffing the team, which is very interesting. Need to see how this ends up working out. They might have even combined Chiori's damage and Chilonen's team damage buff there. Then there's also some of the 4-star buffs. Official in Overload teams buffing your character's attacks, and EM in Electro Charge teams. Soon we'll be getting the full details of all these changes anyway. But what is also interesting is that we're getting storylines alongside these buffs. So they're not just coming out of nowhere. And these Hexerei buffs, which is what they're calling it, are basically grouping the magical Mondstadt characters. What's quite interesting, if you check Hexerei in the dictionary, it is like a German version of witchcraft, but it isn't just a group for lore reasons, but they are making it so it's like faction buffs. In order to get the full buff benefits, you do need to be playing 2 of these characters together. As they said, even Durin gets stronger when you play him with another buff character. So I thought it could be really fun to look at what other groups could be made for future buff batches. The obvious one is this is Mondstadt focused, so what do we do with the other Mondstadt characters? Now there are a few factions you can make from the remaining Mondstadt characters. There is some obvious crossover, but this is what you can start off with. Knights of Favonius, Church of Favonius, Adventurers Guild, and Diluc doesn't really associate with anyone, he's a bit of a loner. You might also be wondering, how is Lisa, the Witch of Mondstadt, not in the Witch's homework buffs?
Asked Mona. She seems to be an excellent mage, but I'm not a part of their Hexen circle. The idea of Erminsel exploration and formal tea parties just leaves me cold.
Now, I don't think Lisa actually cares about being involved with the Hexen circle. She seems more interested in being with the Knights of Favonius and being the librarian. She also has a Sumeru ties. Anyway, you can see there is a problem, which is that there's too many groups. This is all over the place. But the cool thing is, Hexerei isn't actually a real thing. It isn't actually a faction, it's just more of a vague grouping. So why not change Knights of Favonius into Knights? That way we can add Diluc in there. Diona is also a question mark. I don't really know, but at least we have an even amount of characters here. But that's step 1. Step 2 is thinking about the synergies, because you actually need to be playing these characters in the same team together. Now looking at Hexerei, I would say this is somewhat tied together by how flexible the sub DPSs are. There's the inherent overload synergy, Durin's off-field, Pyro, and Official's off-field Electro. That will give you overload for Chevreuse teams. I can see this being a great core. Durin giving the res shred, Official now giving attack buffs. This should be a great core for a lot of Electro and Pyro DPSs. And funnily enough, even the good old Mona, Sucrose, Bennett showcase core could be a thing here as well. Even Albedo, they did show off an Arlecchino double Geo team. So yeah, even in a way, Albedo, if he's a lot better now, he should work as a pretty flexible sub DPS too. But regardless, how do we get these Knights working together? First of all, release wise, they could be tied together with Varka, who conveniently should be coming out sometime next year. So he could function as the Durin of this group. Him being Animo, I could even imagine him and Jean being a strong double Animo core. But I do want to bring up someone not here, which is Rosaria. And one of the things is, Rosaria, she's not great, but she already is technically a cryo and physical support. That's right, you may have forgot this, but her C6 does decrease opponent's physical res. And you have to remember, they do tie all these buffs together with a story. So what if Rosaria could get tied into the Knight's buff with a storyline, and then she could be a support for the physical damage dealers and the cryo while still functioning as a melt support. I don't know, it's just some idea. But I am looking at Eula here as she's basically the only limited 5-star apart from Varka here. So she's got to have some major buffs and major synergies because we need actual physical teammates. Maybe there's room for Rosaria or even Lisa actually. This could be another reason why they decided to leave Lisa out of the witches buffs, which is maybe because there's already Electros here and people already did used to play Eula with Lisa with the TTDS and the defense shred that she brought. So I don't know, maybe there's a world where they turn all 3 of these characters into buffed physical characters. In fact, I just realized I actually forgot about Mika. If Eula's getting buffed, Mika's definitely getting buffed somehow. Kaya just seems specifically designed for freeze teams. I don't know if they'll change that. But hey, maybe they just do buff Kaya without this Knight's thing. And then now he becomes a budget Skirk teammate, I guess. I guess Amber could also be similar to D-Luke and be some sort of melt DPS. Noelle, I don't really know how to tie her in. Geo characters are always kind of weird. It is awkward having these other 3 characters here not getting any buffs. Bennett doesn't need a buff, but yeah, I don't know. This whole thing's just a fun little exercise anyway. Doesn't matter. To be fair though, we might not just be getting Mondstadt buffs. Liyue characters are also super old. Now this also gets tricky because characters like Ganyu are also cheating. Plus I guess Zhongli is Adepti, but I guess I also call this Liyue Harbor. I guess Yunfei could also be here. But she could also be an Adepti. I don't know. The thing that is tricky for Liyue buffs is finding the synergies. Now luckily I did make some nice synergies here. Ganyu and Shenhe could be a synergy. But it's honestly really tricky. There would have to be the new character. If these buffs do come during a Lantern Rite, the new 5-star would have to be a very strong glue. Oh, I forgot Shenyun. Okay, that could be a synergy there. Xiao and Shenyun. Also, maybe they could give a reason to play all 3 of these characters together more. It's tricky. Maybe they do leave Kazuha out for an Inazuma version instead. Beidou could also be here. Maybe there is a way just to call these Adepti buffs and then you merge most of the characters from here. But you know, if there is a way to get Xiangling and Kazuha in the same core, or Kazuha Xingqiu, Xiangling Xingqiu, these could be very powerful sub DPS cores, just like Fischl, Durin. And yeah, in conclusion, one thing I'm realizing, maybe stretch the definition of like Adepti and just maybe just call it Liyue Festival characters or something. The Lantern Rite buffs. In fact, maybe even when they have a Lantern Rite, it's all the characters that were a part of that Lantern Rite, they get buffed. That would be a way of kind of just mishmashing this all together and getting some nice synergies going on and buffing the characters that really need it. There are characters that could need buffs, like Baiju, but I guess he doesn't really work well with any of these characters. He would work better with Dendro teams. Child as well. I mean, if you can buff Xiangling and Kazuha, then he can get indirectly buffed with an international team. Yeah, that was a fun video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I do want to manage my expectations. I don't want to get too excited. Whilst these buffs are very exciting, it will still be a miracle if buffs come out that fast. Perfect example, the Star Rail buffs. At this point, they were like half a year ago, and that was just 4 characters. They haven't even announced the second batch of Nova Flares. So yeah, Star Rail buffs at this point, an absolute disaster. And I would be really sad if we don't get the rest of Mondstadt buffed sometime this year. But with Varka coming out, he's the first like proper Mondstadt character in a long while. The timing is too perfect. Also, if you guys really like this video, I could do some crazy copium content where I go into specific detail on how I think they should buff some of these characters. That could be a cool video. Let me know